Hi everyone. Today is Friday, January the 17th. My name is Anne-Marie Band, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. Today is options expiry, and we also have the inauguration coming on Monday. Today could be incredibly volatile, and so what we want to pay attention to is where the charts are sitting at resistance and support, and what happens when we break through these levels that are supposed to be either resistance or support. So we're going to start with the ES, the E-mini S&P futures, and we're going to see that on the daily chart, what we've got is a recovery of moving averages that we normally work as support. And so we can see this number that I responded to yesterday, 59.58, which we hit at the day's close. For those of us that take futures into the overnight, an absolutely excellent buy zone. And now we are coming into an area of key resistance. This area is 6,000 in the ES. What we want to see is whether price action will hold over that area and take us to 60.45 or come back and hit that 59.58. It is my suspicion that we make a break for this out of this range. Up above 6,000, we get to 6,021 and then 6,045. Below, we've got 59.60-ish, which will hold as frontline support. Great place to buy, but you want your stop to be tight in case it breaks down. Now, if you're like me and you wait for the breakdown, what ends up happening sometimes is that the break is very sharp and you end up having to chase price, or the break completely recovers. Now, the goal is always to manage risk, and so my preferred way to do this is to let it come into the level and then prove out that it's going to be support. Let me show you how that shows up in the aftermarket on a 15-minute chart, which is one of my favorite trading formations to look at. So here we are opening up at 6 p.m. Eastern. The 15-minute chart opens up and we begin to crest higher almost immediately. Notice we break this area down and don't quite get into the 59.58. We stop just shy of it as a new level of liquidity comes in and holds us at 59.61. So this is also something that says, hey, listen, I expect it to come into this level. If it doesn't, I've got myself a potential reversal. This is where we end up looking at our momentum indicators that take us into a space where we say, all right, if my momentum continues to crest and I sit above that VWAP, my goal is going to be following the VWAP up into the resistance zones. And notice that first resistance zone was 59.87. It retests 59.78, and then it lifts again, always presenting that higher low, telling us buy the dip is still in motion. So this is how we look at potential areas that are going to give us either support or failed support, where it continues down. Notice right now we are in the same sort of flow that says, hang on, we're sideways. Perhaps we're coming into that VWAP, old resistance, new support. That's going to be yesterday's closing VWAP action. That number, 59.86, that's going to present our first buy if it holds. So we wait. Now notice momentum is already drifting down. Trend still holding upwards, so we could fade all the way into 59.81, but dips are buys, and so that's what we will look for today with our levels of importance. Those levels of importance that we want to watch for are the value areas that are being created since we opened up on this 15-minute cycle, which is telling us dips are buys, but as we get to 6,000, we need to take profit. Not necessarily short, because the trend is upside. Even though momentum is downside, trend is always master and commander. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Action items, cross current for sure. Deep dips, going to be buys, but let it break the level and recover before we get into the position. And that means we have patience. The deep dip buys 58.22, potentially that 59.60 area, and then the flow to the upside. Very cross current, especially as options are going to expire. This makes for really a messy day. We really want to be very careful today. Watch the size of your positions as it goes. All right, so here we are with the NQ, still seeing lower highs. We still see lower lows, so we know bounces are going to be sell zones. Now, you might say, well, hang on, Anne-Marie, we are lifting higher here, and so could pullbacks also be buy zones? Absolutely. Notice the congestion sitting in the space here. My thought is big shots to the upside are going to be great selling opportunities. We've got a very high volume area in the shorter time frame, somewhere around 21,500. Now it could go to 600, like it almost did yesterday, yesterday, before collapsing. So that is still looking like clean resistance. However, we've held the low of yesterday, which is 21,186. That makes a very nice buy zone. As it comes into the area, let it collapse and then recover, or watch the traders lift it above the price to continue to the north. We can see momentum on the daily is moving upward off of these very low levels. So we definitely could see a breach up into the space. Dips are still buys, but step away from that dip if it collapses and it does not recover. It's telling you a story that the traders want to go lower, and those levels lower are 20,850 and then 20,676, which we haven't seen in a week or so, but still gives us resistance that becomes support. Okay, if we want to look at the hourly chart to see how the market is doing, remember the first hour of trading is the one that tells you where the line in the sand is for the trader saying, well, wait a second, I better hold this area or I'm going to expand my range. And so for that zone, the low of that opening candlestick is 20,209. You're going to see reflexive buying there. But if we bounce and we cannot get back up over that VWAP, there's a problem. Right now, we're above the VWAP. We've got momentum. Notice momentum can be high for longer periods of time. Trend is going to be the master and commander here, and as it always is, and right now, it looks pretty sideways. Sellers coming in at around 21,360. Buyers still trying to hold that floor between 21,200 and 21,250. Those should be your action events for the day. Wait for the price, let it tell you what it's doing, and then follow along. You don't have to be a hero and catch the dip or the low unless you're into that thing, but then you must watch your risk. YM, that's the E-mini Dow, right? What we are looking at here is resistance showing up at our number of 43,581. It's been an area to take profit off of that bounce zone, okay? What we've done here is the point of control and the VWAP action. We're sitting well above it, and we're sitting above our moving averages that are cresting forward. So my thought here is dips or buys. You could try the first entry at 43,146 for a long. If it doesn't hold, it's got, 400 points to the south. If it does hold, we get to walk up this very long downward slope that we saw between December the 5th, ending on December the 18th. And so that's it. The bounce above here at 43,581 tells us that traders are very interested in making higher prices. If it happens to be shorts running for the fire escape, it is going to collapse. So underneath this 43,581, we can short it back into our support levels, sitting at 42,787 and potentially lower at 42,506. If we look at the hourly formation, you can see it's fairly bullish. But what we have to consider is this sideways formation. Notice the moving averages. They're serpentined off to each other. It's telling us the steep rises are sells and the deep dips are buys. And so the steep rise is selling. That's 43,581. The buys really sitting above 43,308. There's liquidity below at 43,240. If it breaks those levels, there's going to be a change in the behavior. And that's really what we want to watch. What's the change in the behavior telling us? It's telling us that traders want to explore prices below those ledges or above those ledges. Liquidity at 43,663, 43,751. Those are the areas to watch for the YM. All right, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin futures back up above 100,000, and really the breakaway formation was 102. So let's take a look at what's going on from a daily chart here for the micro Bitcoin futures. We have lower highs that just got broken, and now we are retesting prior resistance. Does that resistance hold or does it break? My thought is at the first pass, that resistance area at 103,590, something like that. That's going to be the resistance zone. It's an area to take profit. We still have very sideways congested motion. Pullbacks going to be buy zones. Where are they? Well, if you'll notice, this is actually potentially looking like a megaphone. And so what I'm going to do is shift this price action event here so you can see these higher highs, and also we're going to leave this marker here as lower lows. So we could be building a giant megaphone. Here's the thing. You can take the short here. You just have to be quick or you're going to be dead, right? So my thought would be let it exhaust up into the 105,300 area and then try the short, or try the breakout for 2,000 points and potentially 4,000 points above this zone. And at that point, you do want to take some profit because this megaphone will give us a storyboard. My suspicion is a short is setting up here at 103,500. As it loses the level, how do you want to do that? Again, collapse into a tighter time frame. I like the 15-minute. Doesn't tell me the wrong thing too many times. Look at how the slopes are moving. VWAP all the way down here at 101. So that's going to continue this buying pressure that's sitting up here. Dips are buys with this kind of formation. And the bigger dip at, it's not really a bigger dip. The smaller dip at 102,650, 102,650, that's going to give us the support zone that buyers are going to likely come into. This is upward and cresting upward. It could move like this until after the inauguration. A lot of Bitcoin stuff going on. We could see easily it head to 105 and 107 before taking a breath. Ideally, we would want it to come in, hit the VWAP, and then bounce up above, giving us a low risk, high reward entry. And that number is going to be around 101,400 to 101,750. Let's take a look at oil, screaming forward for several days. Collapsing, oh, wouldn't you know it, came right into our zone. Here was my thought. I said, hey, listen, resistance area for sure, dips or buys. The dip area looking like about 77. Here's the thing, folks. See how steep and high this is? Very steep moving averages. Buyers are going to try and come in and defend this area near 78. Okay, notice yesterday, I'm going to lift this number up. Yesterday it came into 77.95 and bounced. Okay, so here's our 77. I'm going to get rid of these Fibonacci's. They're very noisy right now. Okay, so it came in and tried to hold 78, but lost it. Okay, And now we have this topping formation at 79.30. The 30s and the 70s are always super interesting areas for oil. I don't know why, but 79.30, 79.80, those sorts of things, you're going to see it come in to the space. Here is 78.29. So could buyers come in and try to hold this ledge? I would say yes. Now, what is the formation telling us? That we've got some sideways action. This is the low of the opening tick, and we're coming into it. So potentially buyers are going to come in and hold this zone, but so far the bounces are sells. And so I would wait until heavy congestion, really right around that 77.20-ish area, to consider buying formations for this chart. I would like, if it comes up into 79.20, I think a sell there looks very, very nice from a continuation perspective. Right now, we're still caught in this very big box between the value area high of 79.20, value area low all the way down at 75.70. But I think the more important number is the point of control and the VWAP. And those areas are around 77.20 to 77.80. And those are the numbers that we look for. Okay, let's take a look finally for the futures at the gold futures contract, GC. And let's take a look at what's happening. Remember, I initially had said 2,700 is going to be resistance until it recaptures. Look at how it did this. Here's 2,700. It fails it. Over here, it breaks it and then fails it and then recaptures it with moving averages underneath. Dips are buy zones. Now, the next resistance line that needs to hold as new support is 2740. What would I like to do in this case? I'd like to see it come in to 2700 again and test it one more time so that it gives us a further upshot. But you can see the Keltner bands. This is very steeply upside, coming into the clear resistance areas now near 2760. So on the pullback, 2760 would be our target. Okay, so we would look to engage around 2700 from a longer perspective, and then watch it head off into 2760, and then, maybe back up into 2800. Could easily be. Look at what's happening at 2740. Anne-Marie, could I buy 2740? Yes, of course, you could buy 2740. What would your stop be? It'd be pretty low. So what you'd want to watch for is on the 1 hour chart, we can see, look at this. This is sideways. So it's going to give you a shot. It's unless it's news based and it flies all the way to 2760, this should pull back to 2728, maybe even higher 2734, but these are the levels that you watch for, and those would be the buy zones. Are we making lower highs on the hourly? Yes, we are. We're making lower highs on the hourly. And so we have to look at that and go, okay, that's going to bring sellers into the fray. Perhaps I could short it as it gets into the resistance zone near 2750, or it collapses under 2740. Those are going to give me those areas. Downside pressure events could come into 2708. I am very concerned about how the day unfolds. I'm going to be very cautious. All right, remember, traders, today we have our Benzinga Pro midday Moneyball report at noon. And then if you'd like to join me, I'll be on a strategy lab and the reversal challenge on Top Step TV, which is also great fun on the YouTube channel. You can find me there. All right, what are we looking at for SPY? We look at the daily. We can see we're fighting right around this 593 area. So from the 593 area, what are we potentially considering? Well, momentum is up. Keltner bands are mixed. Downside showing from above, upside showing from below. This gives us a range-based event that could push us up into the 600 area or pull us back down into 575. This is a very important zone, but it could go in either direction. So if you want to trade this breakout above 594, you want to collapse into a very tight time frame, watch that hold, and then, maybe 593 might be, Your support zone? No. The support zone, as I move to the hourly chart, looks like 590. So what you want to do is make sure you stay above this 593 and get out of the trade, because if it loses 593, it could easily come down to 590. All right? Very sideways pressure event. Very sideways pressure event. For the Qs, same sort of thing, lower highs. And essentially, we still have those lower lows, right? But it's compressing. And where is it compressing? Right around that 515 to 516 value area high. We gapped up at the opening tick here, so we're above the low. That's what you're going to have to watch with all of the charts today. Very important that you watch the low of the pre-market as well as the low of the prior day. Those two things are going to be critical, because if we lose them and don't immediately recapture them, we've got plenty of downside pressure. If we do lose them and then we recapture them, it could be a great signal for a reversal of trend back to the upside. All right, everyone, that's it. Hope you have a great weekend. We've got a short day on Monday. Futures markets close, or all the markets close at noon, and then we'll be back up to snuff. I don't even know what that term means, back up to snuff. But we will have our regular schedule on Monday. Take care. Watch your risk.